Good morning, everybody. As a start, I'd like to welcome Dave Watson to start today's proceedings with a karakia.
Tēnā tātou katoa, kua taimai nei ki tēnei tangi, ki te whakanui i te oranga I o tātou rangatira, pāpā, te pautoko manawa o tēnei wahi, Dennis Rocky Hall. Me karakia tātou. He honore, he kororia ki te atua, he maungaronga ki te whenua, he whakaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa. Hanga e te atua, e ngā kauhau, ki roto ki tēnā o mātou, whakatongia tō wairua tapu, hei awhina, hei tohu mō tēnei rā, ake, āmene.
What an honour to be able to stand up here today and welcome you all on behalf of Jude, Trish, Alan and their families to celebrate the life of a man who lived with huge passion for absolutely everything he did. A man who completely dedicated his life to his community and in particular the Surf Lifesaving Club that we're all standing in today. Jude, thank you so much for allowing me to play a hand today in celebrating Rocky's life. I'm going to be honest, I'm about as nervous now as Rocky would have been during a tight race between Waikanae and Midway at the local Surf Lifesaving Championship. So forgive me if I have the odd stumble, but thank you so much. I just want to do a good job for a man who had such a huge impact on my life and so many others around Midway and around Gisborne. If you look up passion in the dictionary, a photo of Rocky in his straw hat, wearing one of those old red, green and white Midway jackets with a clipboard filled with team lists that you could hardly read, comes up. Today we're going to hear some beautiful stories from people really close to Rock. And yes, we will shed a tear. But today really is about celebrating a life well lived. It's often talked about that Midway Surf Club was Rocky's family. Now that's absolutely true. And Rocky literally dedicated his life to bettering Midway and every kid that walked through that front door. Today we're going to hear so much more than that. Whether it be his wonderful grandchildren and his family, a lifetime of running a small business in Gisborne, or stories of the amazing trips that Rocky and Jude would take to visit his best mate, Kit, on North Stradbroke Island. The man really did bleed as much out of 80 years as he possibly could. For me, Rocky was more than just the old guy from the surf club. He was so invested in everything that I did, right from my earliest years. And as I grew into a life of surf lifesaving, we grew closer and closer. It's only in my latter years that I can sort of reflect back on just how much he cared about what I was doing and what it meant to him. So Rock, for me to be here to send you off for the last time, it really does mean the world. That being said, I'd now like to introduce you all to Rocky's sister, Trish, who has finally managed to get here courtesy of Air New Zealand to speak about her wonderful brother. Trish.
Kia ora, David, for your karakia. Ka nui te mihi ki a koutou katoa. I'm Trish Hall, Rocky's only sister, and I stand here with Rocky's brother Alan, Rocky's nieces, Veronica and Rosemary, and their families, and listening from Europe is Nina and Ralph, Rocky, their uncle. I'm here to honour Rocky and his family foundations that shaped him, or helped shape him, along with all of you. Dennis was the middle child of 3. We lived most of his childhood in Dalrymple Road, Mangapapa. There was a tall walnut tree in the backyard. He loved to climb to the top of it. As soon as he heard city sirens, he wanted to know what was going on, and he'd come down and report it with excitement. But oh, the drama the day that he fell out of that tree. Dennis's childhood was idyllic from this angle. Catching eels in the river with a street gang of kids, being sharp-tongued to his little sister, and reveling in being a family rebel. Every weekend, we loved picnicking. Puawa, Wainui, Whangara. It was the 1950s, and we'd pile into our old black Chevy, picnic tin box loaded. As soon as we found our spot, Dennis the Menace at 9 was off, disappeared. When it came time to go home, our parents would call him repeatedly. Then he would be given the ultimatum. You have 2 minutes and we will leave you behind. No response. So we would drive off slowly through the dunes. The moment we turned onto the main road, Dennis would be seen sprinting towards the car. Why didn't you wait? He'd pant. So began a lifetime of never wanting to leave the beach. So how did Dennis become Rocky? It was in his 3rd form year at Boys High. There are differing family stories, but each refer to Rocky Marciano, heavyweight world champion in the 50s. Rocky's version as a 3rd former, Dennis tried boxing, but in fact lost every match. So his mates sarcastically called him Rocky after the champion. Alan, his 6th former brother, is certain that it was Alan who was nicknamed Rocky first. I understand that this was to do with Alan, a very good debater, punching home his debating points. It's a tradition in a boys' school, I understand, too, that a nickname passes down from older to younger brother. Whatever, we all know the name Rocky stuck and it suited him. It was the 60s and the Beach Boys were giving us the good vibrations. Surf is up and teenager Rocky is falling in love, first with surfing and then surf lifesaving. On the day of his English university entrance exam, he absconded from the exam early because surf was up. A critical decision that became a habit. He could easily have succeeded at uni, but the ocean had the stronger pull for that 17-year-old. So how come Rocky became a painter and ran a successful business in Gisborne? Let me take you to the 1890s, and it hangs on a doctor's recommendation. Our granddad, John Henry Hall, was a painter in the textile mills in Bradford, Yorkshire. At 28, his doctor told him he had lead poisoning and the only cure was a long sea voyage and to live somewhere warm. So in 1905, John Henry Hall migrated, and right here in the bay, he was let down off his ship onto a barge for the rest of his life. Our Nana followed him about 18 months later with 3 little boys. Our father, Ralph, was born the only Kiwi son in the family. Our dad left Boys High at 13 to help his father in his business. And by the time Rocky was just 28, our father needed to retire. So as a young man, Rocky inherited a 3rd generation business. And as a business leader, he was innovative, successful, and exceedingly hardworking. So how did Rocky get this passion that Matt referred to? Many ways, but I want to talk about how he was influenced by Ralph, both his work boss and his father. Our dad lived his values daily, being kind, fair, quietly achieving results through good relationships with other people and giving 110%. Both our parents and grandparents were stalwarts in many organisations and civic service here in Gisborne, and through their example, they instilled in us the desire to fully contribute to improving the lives and community here. Rocky followed their lead with deep determination and loyalty. So what about Rocky as uncle? Over the 80s, 90s and 2000s, our extended family has come back to Gisborne most summers. It was easy to buy a Christmas present for Rocky because he was an avid reader, especially of New Zealand military history. Our summers, we would always have great debates on multiple issues. He delighted in disagreeing for the hell of it. What a stirrer. Always a staunch, proud man and uncle. When our kids showed some sporting talent, Rocky was very generous and supportive. And of course, he told them what was best for them. In 1998, he convinced our 14-year-old Nina to join Midway at the height of her swimming prowess. Rocky worked under pressure to train her so she could contribute to patrol and to the Nationals. 10 years later, when Nina's team swam the English Channel, raising money to support women who'd been abused, Uncle Rocky was ultra proud. He claimed this was a Midway victory. In the mid-1990s, Rocky and Jude formed a beautiful partnership, and his life was enriched. We are so happy that they had a wonderful, energetic 30 years and more together. Jude, Kylie and David and kids and the rest of Jude's family have given Rocky so much joy. I would be rich beyond my wildest dreams if I had $5 for every time Rocky told me how much he loved Jude and how lucky he was, and I agree. A deep thank you, Jude, and your family, for the love of Rocky and for the fun you created together. Yes, these last years have been very sad. Jude, you have been his rock. We will always love you and Rocky. Rest in peace, Rocky. Moi mai rā, moi mai rā.
Thank you, Trish. That was beautiful. I picked up on a couple of things there for me with Rock's business life. I'm really glad that it was a successful business because I've got some scaffolding from Rock's yard that I got about 15 or 17 years ago that I've painted Kylie and I's house with that I haven't given back yet. So, Jude, if you need some scaffolding, I'll it's always there. It's on me. Thanks so much, Trish. I'd now like to introduce you to one of Rocky's closest and old friends, Kit Carson. Kit can't be here with us today, but he has recorded a lovely video as a tribute to his great mate.
I've just read some lovely tributes to Rocky from Midway and Tom Walters, which sum him up eloquently. Whilst his remarkable life in New Zealand will be well known to most of you, another side of his life across the Tasman may be less familiar. We met in Melbourne in 1966, literally bumping into each other in a practice match at Powerhouse Rugby Club. Common backgrounds in surfing and lifesaving soon led to our involvement with Torquay Surf Club, where we both competed in their R&R team along with some very elite swimmers. As chance would have it, we had an opportunity to buy an unfinished batch at nearby Janjuk, not far from Bells Beach. For the princely sum of $3,000, we bought it. And with Rocky's skill, we ended up with a modest 2-bedroom batch with an outdoor dunny. So began some memorable times surfing bells and winky pop on belly boards. In the days before leg ropes on surfboards, we often had the Rocky or winky pop to ourselves, and Rocky soon gained a reputation as something of a crazy, brave daredevil. During the winter, we wore wetsuits made by a couple of seamstresses on behalf of Brian Singer and Dub Warbrick, a couple of guys in Torquay Surf Club. These were prototypes of what became the Rip Curl brand, the company those guys went on to create. His affable and enthusiastic nature ensured Rocky was a popular and prominent member of the local surfing community of the time, and he's still fondly remembered by those remaining. When not surfing, Rocky frequently went missing. Predictably, he would be out running, training for rugby. Injuries curtailed my playing days, but I enjoyed 2 seasons playing alongside him and Tom Walters, during which we made 2 grand finals. We lost the first, but won the second. Whilst not the pinnacle of his illustrious sporting career, I think it was one of his more cherished sporting moments, along with being selected to represent Victoria, where he played against several Wallabies and also against the Fiji international team. The least said about the results of that match, the better. In the late 60s, the 2 of us went on a road trip along the East Coast. It was during cyclone season, and Rocky was stoked to see and surf Noosa, Kira and Snapper in classic conditions. I'm sure Rocky wouldn't mind a couple of anecdotes at his expense. As a younger man, he suffered a stammer when he got excited. With typical resolve, he went on to master it in later years. Corin and I got married in 1969, and Rocky was our best man. When asked to state his name as witness, he got stuck on the R, which was a problematic consonant for him. After what seemed an eternity waiting, our groomsmen nudged Jeff nudged him and said, "Hey, Rock, it's actually Dennis." D was equally problematic, and it seemed like ages before we finally got out Dennis Hall. We all laughed about it later, none more so than Rocky. Rocky was a reasonably restrained drinker by the standards of some of our cohort, but he obviously relaxed at our wedding party. Kerry and I were already back in our little flat when we heard a loud noise and thud at the end of our bed. It was a more than tipsy Rocky making a dramatic entrance through our open bedroom window. He'd gotten separated from the rest of the party, lost his keys and couldn't think where else to go. Such are the bonds of friendship. We kept in touch after he returned to New Zealand and saw him reasonably often, whenever he returned to Australia or on our couple of trips to New Zealand. During his visits to Queensland, we always enjoyed long ocean swims across the bays at Greenmount and later at Straddie and Mooloolaba. We introduced him to Straddie in the late 80s, and after we built our holiday home there in 1995, he became a regular and welcome visitor. Predictably, he gravitated towards the local lifeguards and loved to chat with them and exchange notes. I remember sometime in the later 90s when he mentioned this really neat chick he'd met and for whom he held high hopes. We were pleased to learn things were going well and soon met June. We were even more delighted to learn they planned a secret wedding on Straddie. I was honoured to be able to return the favour and be Rocky's best man. He made a lot of good decisions in his life, but marrying Judy was clearly his happiest. With the advent of internet, we spoke regularly via FaceTime and usually discussed rugby and all things surf-related, but particularly the successes of Midway. In later times, he was highly excited and proud of the new surf club development. Sadly, he hasn't been able to visit Australia for the last couple of years, but we've still been able to enjoy video chats until quite recently. Rocky gave 110% to everything he did, sometimes to the detriment of his body, as his long list of sporting-related injuries attests. And I can think of no one who achieved more with his God-given talent through sheer determination and a commitment. He lived a very full, successful, and I believe happy life, and I'm thankful for having shared part of it.
Thanks for that, Kit. I know you're watching today, and I've got fond memories of Rocky and Jude speaking of the times that you had in North Straddie with Kit, and he just loved it every time he came back. And the mornings him and Kit would spend swimming out at Straddie, and the times they had over there. I specifically remember Rock talking about that a lot. So he's clearly got some great memories and clearly a great friend in Kit. So thank you very much for that. I'd now like to invite the current chairman of Rocky's beloved Midway Surf Lifesaving Club, a good friend of mine, Jared Phelps, to come up. And Jared's going to be reading a tribute to Rock from another great friend from his Victorian rugby days. There'll be some more on rugby and Rock later on. From Tom Walters. So if you'd like to come up, JP.
Righto, to introduce myself, I am Jared Phelps. I'm the chairman of Midway Surf Lifesaving Club, Rock's Club. Before we go any further, since Matt's already confessed to pinching Rock's scaffolding, some of that scaffolding did end up at my place, Jude. I can tell you now, it's not there. If you want to call the police, it's currently at Thorpe's house. Sorry, Thorpe. I have the pleasure and privilege of reading a tribute from Rocky's great friend Tom Walters. Reading the tribute brought back a few great and not so great memories about the chats I and probably actually every member of Midway Surf Lifesaving Club would have had with Rocky. Down on the grass in front of the surf club, normally sitting on the little rail down there after a Wallabies won against the All Blacks. If they had a loss, or if the All Blacks had a loss, our national team, you'd be a little bit unsure about going in the surf club the next morning. And the surf club had to be pretty bloody good to get down there. Because you know, when you get down there, it'll start by you pulling up into the car park. Rock's blue Ford Falcon will be parked front centre in his reserve car park. You'll be up there bright and early, so you won't miss anyone. And he'll be sitting up on the railing, pretending to look over the surf, over the ocean. But really, he was waiting for his opportunity to scalp a few of our members. He'd pull you over, in his words, to debrief the game. I think it was more of an opportunity to rub a bit of salt into the wound. Rock would make it clear who won, which All Black played poorly, and he'll finish by telling you which All Black cheated. But he got as good as he gave, because the Wallabies didn't really win all that often. They still don't. And it'd normally be us going down there, and because Rocky loved the place so much, he was always there. We'd get down there, we'd see Rocky sitting on the railing, and on these days, he would be looking over the sea, checking out what's going on, and it'd be us, it'd be hunting him down to go and have a chat. He'd take the losses reasonably well. I think some people rub a little bit more of that salt into his wound than others. But he'd always carry on with his three little things around his debrief the game. He'd skip over who won, what All Black played poorly, but he'd tell you he only watched about 15 minutes of the game. Then he'd tell you what All Black cheated. Anyway, great times. Those chats were awesome, and we are going to miss them. Right, Rocky Hall. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. My name is Tom Walters, and we now live in Taupo after having lived overseas in Australia and USA predominantly for many years, as I pursued my dreams to sail the oceans and play rugby around the world. Rocky arrived at the Powerhouse Rugby Club in Melbourne at a time when I was fortunate enough to be his first grade captain and coach. Together with two other Gisborne stalwarts, Pedro Brown and Harry Bean, they helped form a very successful rugby team. Rocky was a fitness fanatic and set a fine example to the club in general, both on and off the field. He was a dedicated athlete, intent on doing whatever it took to play 80 minutes. He also represented Victoria, and he was a very mobile and capable hooker. His prowess on the ocean was legendary, and him and his good friend Kit Carson, who we've heard from before, were noted for their ability to surf. The Winky Pot Beach around the corner from Torquay in Australia, Victoria, Australia, was their playground, both Kit and Rock. They not only introduced surfers to Winky Pop, but they also named it after Kit's dash-hound Winky Pop. The ability of Kit and Rocky to guide their belly boards along massive surf and avoid the rocks was quite outstanding. It is ironic that the ocean survival skills I picked up from Rocky at Winky Pop served me well later in my ocean racing career. I remain thankful to have had the good fortune to have spent so much time with such a good man and dedicated athlete. He was very proud of Midway Surf Club, and I enjoyed my visits there with him and the fine lunch which followed. We spoke often about a trip back to the infamous Powerhouse rugby lunch in Melbourne, but sadly that did not eventuate. His passing is a sad day for all who knew him. To Jude, the family, we offer you and your family our thanks for the memories and condolences. We'll remember you, Rocky. Rest in peace, my friend. Whakaria mai, tō repeka kia au, te aho mai, ra roto e te pau. Ki kona au, te titiro atu ai. Ora mate, hei au, koe, noho ai, amini. O Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the works thy hands have made, I see the stars, I hear the thunder rolling, the power throughout the universe displayed. Amen. Tom Walters.
Oh, thanks, JP. That's wonderful. It's so neat to hear, as with Kit, to hear of Rock's friendships in his younger days. I often think of, guys around Rock's age and the times you had surfing places like Victoria and Bells and Winky Pop when there was probably no one else around. You may have been wearing wetsuits for rugby jerseys for wetsuits, but it's probably better than what we've got at these days. So it's neat to hear those memories. I'd now like to welcome a man who has spent many hours with Rock right out there, paddling between that bit of sand around the island and back so many times, and a man who played a huge part along with Rock, guiding Rocky's beloved Midway club through the years, to come up and say some words. Bob Dyer.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Jude, for giving me this opportunity. Absolutely proud to do this. Hopefully I do a reasonable job. In my beginning of my notes, I went, okay, what was Rocky's attributes? And Trish read them all out. Damn. She did miss the pig-headedness, though. Thanks to everyone who's turned up today. It's amazing. Just people that I haven't seen for years. Absolutely fantastic. And it's an attribute to Rock that everyone has made the effort to come. Okay, on Friday dawn service, I was sitting there, standing there, and I was reflecting because Rock was always at dawn service. And I went, holy shit. 49 years I knew Rock. I know other people have known him longer than that, but I was 14 when we met. So it was a long time. And as with many of you, Rocky got me my surf award. And I don't know, people have said hundreds of people. I'm close, sure he was close to 1,000 people that he would have put through their awards. Outstanding effort. And when you look back on what he did at Midway, he's a life member, but he should have been a life member 4 or 5 times over. He did that much. And it's really funny, like when he was doing the surf awards every year, he would tell all the people that the surf award, the surf swim had to be done in 8 minutes when it was actually 9. But he just made sure no one was going to fail under his regime. It was outstanding. And any extra work that the non-swimmers had to do, they did it with Suts. Suts is here today. Thank you, mate. Okay, the first time I actually went away with Rock was in 1978. There was Benny Hutchings, Rocky and I, and his Valiant Dude, I think it was back in those days. He had Rocky's ski, the double ski, him and Coppo were probably going to paddle on. And away we went. We stayed at a place called Ruakaka, and that didn't really end up well. Midway then had to fight for quite a while to get us approval to go to the next nationals because the woman who was running the hotel wouldn't give us an accommodation report. Now, I'm not too sure. I was young at the time. I don't know what happened. But just to sidetrack a little bit on that. So, I don't know. I think it was early 2000s. There was a rumour going around Surf Lifesaving that the nationals were going to go back to Waipu Cove. So, Maurice and I were kind of thinking about it. We went, and Maurice said, what do you think we should do? We'll book somewhere early so we've got somewhere. And I went, go back to that hotel. Surely that old bitch won't be there. But unfortunately, she was. And unfortunately, she had a very long memory. And there was no way she was booking Midway Surf Club into her motel. As time went on, we formed a little group. There was Rocky, I, DJ Malone. Swimming times, there was Ethel Campbell, there was Glenn. And we just formed a little squad that would go training every day. When we went out paddling, as Matt just said, around the Mile Buoy or out to the island, young Nick said, depending on the weather, we had some great stories. Rocky's knowledge of sport, history, anything he had stored in his head came out. It was fantastic. I'd just like to also go back to before he went to Australia. Rocky did compulsory military training. And he had a little story he used to tell as we were out in the water. And he said when he was turning 21, so to go to a bar back in those days, you had to be 21, and he was out on exercises. And when he came back, he was meant to go and get a little certificate to say he was 21. Unfortunately, the administration office had closed down by the time he got back. So Rocky, being Rocky, decided he was going to go to the wet canteen anyway. So he was there, and the military police came in and they said, hold your stickers up. So Rocky just put his hand up, got pulled out. After that, he spent 48 hours in the Armor military prison. And he said after that, he was the model soldier. So I presume it wasn't very nice. Early 90s, we decided to do the coast duathlon. So we did a lot of running, a lot of cycling, and got ready to do that. 3 times a week, we would run from here over Kaiti Hill, do the fitness trail, and come back. Really hard work, did a lot of work. So we get into Tokomara Bay to do the last run leg up to Tupuia. And I can't remember for the life of me who Rocky's squad was, who was helping him out with his bike and stuff like that. But we arrived at the same time in Toko, and Rocky's team hadn't brought his shoes. So this is the pig-headed part. Instead of just waiting for his team to go and get his shoes, he ran barefoot and started up the hill. And it was kind of like, Rock, what are you doing that for? So he went up 500, 600 meters, then had to stop and put his running shoes on. So yeah, it was just kind of did that kind of stuff. Another great time. 96, we went to Africa for the World Surf Lifesaving Masters, and Blue Grey wanted a beach relay team. So the way they worked it out in those days, your team had to be a certain age. So unfortunately, Rocky got coaxed in to do it. And Blue spent hours and hours trying to teach Rocky how to dig blocks in the sand and start off like that. So Rocky was going first, so he dug his blocks, gun went, and Rocky went splat on his face. We just gave him hell after that. And then after that, we travelled around Africa for a little while, well, South Africa. And Rocky being Rocky and wanting to do everything, about 4 or 5 days into it, he decided he had to start training again. So he's looking for swimming pools, he was going for runs, he was just wouldn't relax and do nothing with us. Okay, Rocky and the All Blacks. Okay, I think I've got this story right. So when Rocky was in Victoria, the All Blacks came and played, and unfortunately somehow they found out Rocky was a Kiwi, and they gave him a bit of a hard time, and that's where his hatred for the All Blacks came from. And what JP said, yeah, he was fantastic if the All Blacks had lost. Just amazing. Didn't really matter who they were playing, as long as the All Blacks lost, he didn't care. I can remember years ago, Mikey was, my son was quite young, and it was a test in Wellington, and John Eels kicked a penalty right at the end. And Mikey, being Mikey, he went Rocky, I'll give you a bet that the All Blacks are going to win. Rocky said yes. And then Mikey had to go and get $2 or whatever he bet him, pay him before he'd leave. Winning the Alan Gardner as Midway was, I guess, one of Rocky's proudest moments. We did it back in 81, but at that time Rocky wasn't really involved in the club. There was a few issues, more kayaking issues, and Rocky never travelled with us that year. But once we got into the 2000s and we had a great squad, and so many of you are here today, that was really his proudest times. Getting back to when we used to train, we used to sit down, and especially when we were getting a little bit older, and Rocky would be looking at the sea and going, is it too big? Is it small enough for it to get out? And after a while I'd go, oh, come on, you old bastard, let's go. And his answer wasn't about the bastard, it was about the old part. He really hated growing old. What else we got? As Rocky's health started to deteriorate, again, the stubbornness came in, because we'd go for a run or we'd go for a paddle, and Rocky would all of a sudden just start dropping off. And we'd go, come on, Rox, what's wrong? Oh, nothing's wrong with him, nothing's wrong with me. And he just wouldn't admit that there was something wrong with him. And he ended up with a pacemaker. And yeah, that was really hard, because we didn't want to upset him by saying, hey, Rock, there is something wrong with you here. And yeah, one time we was DJ Malone. We paddled out at lunchtime and we came back, and Dennis and I were just talking away, and next minute Rocky just dropped straight off. And we kind of turned around and went back, and we realised Rocky was having a bit of a turn. And Dennis went, don't worry, I'll paddle in and get help. And I was going, you're not leaving me with Rocky here just in case he falls off. We're going to have big trouble. So yeah, it was good. And just to finish up, I'd really like to thank and reiterate what everyone said. Jude, the few times that I did see Rocky when he was in the home, he spent so much time talking about you and his love for you and stuff like that. It was fantastic. And David, thank you for giving me the kick up the arse to make sure I went and saw him. Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Bob. Certainly some amazing memories there, certainly, especially through the early 2000s, as you said, as being involved in the club. And it's neat to see some of the young people here. They're, well, not so young these days, but they're sort of like mid 30s and got kids with them now. And that's one thing I do remember as well. He was so proud of all those kids and watching them succeed. And he took so much pride in what they were doing. Now, Noah Watson, Rocky's wonderful techie grandson, has done an amazing slideshow that we're going to show now. We've still got a couple of speakers that we're going to roll through, but we're going to break it up now by with Noah showing a really neat slideshow with some slides of Rocky and the family and a whole lot of things throughout the years. So there you go, Noah.
Goodbye, my own true lover, as we sing a lover's song. How it breaks my heart to leave you. Now the carnival is gone. High above, the dawn is waking, and my tears are falling rain. For the carnival is over, we may never meet again. Like a drum, my heart was beating, and your kiss was sweet as wine. But the joys of love are fleeting, for Pierrot and Columbine. Now the harbor light is calling. This will be our last goodbye. Though the carnival is over, I will love you till I die. Like a drum, my heart was beating, and your kiss was sweet as wine. But the joys of love are fleeting, for Pierrot and Columbine. Now the harbor light is calling. This will be our last goodbye. Though the carnival is over, I will love you till I die. Though the carnival is over, I will love you till I die.
We just thought we'd get Noah to do that just in case there was a dry eye in the room. Yeah, there's some amazing memories there. There's some of the photos I see there of Rock and Jude on the beach at, I think it was Malulabar, and the pictures of the kids in the room competing in the early 2000s. That's what I remember Rocky as, you know, standing on a beach or doing stuff for the surf club. So yeah, it's just so neat to watch that. Another man who Rocky had a lot to do with throughout the years, and also has done an amazing amount for this community, is Tim Marshall. And I'd like to get Tim Marshall to come up and say a few words about Rocky.
Kia ora whānau. Yeah, I was just thinking it'd probably been easier to speak before the photos rather than after them, but kia ora koutou katoa ngā mihi aroha kia koutou. Ai whakapiri mai ki whakanui a tēnei rangatira a Rocky. Just wanted to thank Jude for the honour and privilege, as being said, to say a few words in tribute to Rocky. One of the many special people I've met in the time I've been here in Gisborne, had the privilege to meet. I hope you and the family find comfort. I was going to adjust that. Oh, sorry. Shorter people, you see. Sorry. Yes. I hope you find comfort in the love that's in the room today, and that carries on in the times that are to come. And a special thanks to Trish for supporting our family at my dad's passing in January. My dad had some of the similar journey in his health in the last few years of his life as Rocky did. So thanks for that, Trish. I'm just here to speak on behalf of the Gisborne Harrier Club. As we've seen some photos and we've heard a few stories of Rocky's prowess outside the Midway Surf Club and on the roads. But I do have a connection here. My daughter-in-law Charlie's here, who whānau, of course, are big members of the club, and our two daughters, Amiri and Ngahui, actually competed for Midway and Ocean Athletes. Against their will, they tell me now. Although our media wasn't one of those championship winning pictures I see, I think, in Mount Maunganui. I first met Rocky in 1993. We moved here at the end of 1992, and in 1993 I joined the Gisborne Harrier Club. And Pete Quacks and I were invited to a Tuesday night run from Rocky's house, later to be known as the Tuesday night races, because they got a bit faster and faster as the evening went on. And Bob Carter, who's sadly no longer with us, and I see die here today, invited us for a run with him, Rocky, and Rob Robertson, and a couple of others, I think including Pete Moisey, who asked Rocky to host one of his birthdays later on. But they said they're running from 4:45. It was my first understanding that for Bob Carter, 4:45 meant you leave at 4:45. So as Pete and I were driving up Aberdeen Road, just about to the gym club, they were running towards us. Which meant the hasty costume change in the car, trying not to be exposed too far. But Tuesday night runs were originally a run up the Trig, it's now to Kuri Walkway from Rocky's house, and then later moved to the Gisborne Harrier Club. And the first part of the run was normally pretty cruisy. And from the Harrier Club, we'd start by running around the golf course. And it would normally be a competition between Rocky and Ron, who could tell the best jokes and who could outdo each other. And the only one of those I remember is actually kind of related to surf lifesaving, but I won't tell it here. It's probably better left for later in the evening or some other time. And Rocky, by that stage, was not quite as fast as the rest of us, although I've now realised, as I've passed through the years, that they were, at that time, that they were actually pretty fast. And the fact that I think my racing pace is their jogging pace back then, yeah, is probably testimony to that. But he'd get a bit frustrated by the fact that when we waited for him at the top of each hill, as soon as he turned up, we'd take off again. And so he wouldn't really get much of a break. Well, we reassured him that he was actually getting the better deal because he was having a much constant effort through the day. And as Ron would say, you'll be thanking us in 2 weeks. And as we've heard already, Rocky wasn't much of a fan of the All Blacks and probably New Zealand rugby, actually. And I think, I understand he's also a member of Heart Hold All Racist Tours and opposed to the Springbok Tour. And like many others, stood in the face of some adversity back there and some backlash. However, his contempt of the All Blacks, or Mountain Heads, as he used to refer them when he was saying that, continued, and he's not afraid to show it. And it's interesting that Bob mentioned that test, that rugby test, because that was in the days, some of us in the room might remember the early days of satellite TV. PACSAT, I think it was called here. And some people, if you were lucky, you had PACSAT, but other people didn't. The Gisborne Harrier Club didn't. So on a Saturday afternoon, we'd do our runs, and by that time, Rocky wasn't as active as running as he was, so he'd be at home. But we were watching that test, and everybody swore secrets, and we don't hear the results. And it was a pretty close test, as I understand it. It was John Eales kicked it in the final bit. But at halftime, we were just breaking for halftime, and in walks Rocky in his Wallabies top and a scarf, singing "Waltzing Matilda." As you can probably imagine, there was a bit of anger in the room there. And Ron, I don't think Ron is here, but I never really saw Ron angry. But he immediately left the building. And I think it was probably to avoid knocking Rocky out at the time. All that being said, we love Rocky, his knowledge and understanding, his opinions and humour. And for myself personally, he, like Ron and Bob and others at that time, was one of the many role models and mentors I was lucky enough to connect with during my time here in Gisborne, and I'll be forever thankful for that. So rest in love now, Rocky. No more training to do, races to run, or coaching to deliver. Me haere koe I runga I te rangi Māori ki o tupuna I tatara ana mōhau. Kia ora.
Thanks so much, Tim. And Tim, if you don't know, has just got back today as well from being away at another event in Wellington. So thank you so much for making the effort to come back for today. I know Rocky would be so happy to have you here. I'd now like to welcome the current president and fellow life member of Midway Surf Lifesaving Club to the front, in Dave Corin, to speak about his relationship with Rocky.
Good morning, everybody. Unfortunately, quite a bit of the thunder's been taken, being the fifth speaker, but I'll do my best, and if I cover some of the stories again, they're slightly different. But yeah, so my name's Dave Corin. I've known Rocky for about 20 odd years. And in 2005, our kids who were just 5 and under at the time were keen to start into sport. And we heard that surf lifesaving could be a good option. So on a Saturday morning, we drove down the beach, not really knowing any club or anyone in the sport. Midway was the first club we parked up at, and by luck, 2 people had just come out of the water skiing. They were Rocky and Brian Wilson. Rocky introduced himself and told us all about nippers, and from then on, our family has revolved around surf lifesaving. It wasn't all plain sailing with Rocky, and I soon found out to stick to the rules and not to upset him. Two weeks into the club, I clearly remember getting an allocated board out of the gear shed and Rocky marching down the beach and telling me in no uncertain terms that I was never to do this again. However, from then on, Rocky and I developed a special friendship. And it wasn't long before he suggested I needed my bronze and my IRB certificate. And like hundreds of others, he put me through this. He also suggested I take up ski paddling. And pretty soon, he would be ringing me late mornings when I was at work, asking if I was coming down at lunchtime to go around the buoys and into the harbour. Dennis Malone would also sometimes join us. And it used to make me laugh and think of that program, The Last of the Summer Wine, as I listened to these 2 old guys talk of what, let me have my glasses on, that's probably why I can't barely see. Last of the Summer Wine, as I listened to these 2 old guys talk of what they used to get up to as lads, who the best looking girls were in the class. I think they were talking about Gisborne High School in those days, and also the banter and arguments they had along the way. Rocky also allowed me to have a ski at his home, and when the waves were too big at Midway, we would paddle up the river and had plenty of debates on the politics of the day. Rocky being a bit of a lefty and myself leaning very much to the right. At committee level, Rocky could always hold his own, and in one incident, quite a few years back now, we decided to replace the old tent. Rocky was not happy about this, and a couple of days later, he tracked me down, telling me that in 1974 or thereabouts, there was a carnival and a cyclone came through and took out all the tents apart from one, Midway. Don't you replace it. It didn't take me long to work out that it wasn't the strength of the tent that concerned Rocky, but the memories the tent held for him. And that's what he was like in the club. Whenever you tried to change anything, Rocky was hard on you, but I realised why. And this is another All Black one, but anyway, I won't. Another story that most of you all know, Rocky loathed the All Blacks. He would watch a test on a Saturday night and come down to the pool on a Sunday morning for swimming training, moaning that the ref was blind, McCaw had cheated. On one occasion, the Wallabies bet us, and sure enough, on the Sunday morning, Rocky turned up once again in an Aussie rugby jersey singing Waltzing Matilda, just to stick it up us. Unfortunately, a while back now, Rocky had to give up paddling, which made him very, very frustrated. But he was always waiting by his riverbank or on his deck wanting to talk, mainly about how Midway was going, the new build, and how proud he was of Olivia, Corin and Chris, who were in the Nutrigrain or representing New Zealand, and the fact that a few years ago he had put them through their bronze. The last time I visited Rocky at Te Wiramu was around 4 to 5 weeks ago. He was sitting in his walker and we watched Dad's Army together. When it finished, I said to Rocky, I have to go now. To my surprise, he stood up unassisted, he smiled and shook my hand hard and said, see you later, Dave, just like the old Rocky. A few days later, while paddling, Jude asked me, how had I found Rocky? When I told her what had happened, she smiled with a twinkle in her eye and said, that's my Rocky. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Dave. It's been said a lot today, and as many of you know, Rocky absolutely adored the love of his life in Jude. I've got vivid memories of the way Rocky would always look at Jude with absolute admiration and love. And it was often spoke about. I'm old enough to remember. It was often spoke about how on earth did Rocky manage to win over this gorgeous lady? We always said he certainly was batting well outside his crease, Jude. Given Rocky's love for his Jude, it's a great honour to ask our final speaker to come to the stage today, Jude's son-in-law, Dave Watson, to speak on behalf of Jude and her family.
Oh, it's a tough one, guys. Far out. Last. As Matt said, I am Dave Watson. I'm the proud son-in-law of Rocky and Jude. It's not a good start, eh? I'll be all right. Thanks everyone for being here today, and obviously all the people in the background who have made this possible at such a last moment, the last minute. Far out, one bloody week, eh? The family appreciate it. Yeah, look, hey, I've known Rocky for 30 years. 20 of those years I've been his neighbour up a communal driveway with Glenn Sutton. We've had a few stories, but many of the stories, the gate talk with Rocky was life, Jude, kids, Jude, his beloved surf club, Jude. He absolutely adored her. Rocky was a special guy, as we all know. He was a real bloke, set in his ways. And I can remember not these later years, but maybe 10 or so years ago, he had some trouble with his shoulder, and his best battling days were behind him. And I said to him, hey, mate, if you could go back in time, would you change something? Would you tweak something, to avoid the injuries? And without hesitation, he looked at me and he said, yep, I would have gone harder. And that's who Rocky was: relentless, driven, passionate, I think mad at times. He was the guy you wanted beside you when your back was against the wall. He was your guy, the rock star, as Jude would call him, a legend of our community. I am going to miss Rocky, but what I'm not going to miss is that blue V8 Ford Falcon going up and down our driveway, particularly in the early hours of the morning, beeping outside my window, singing Waltzing Matilda, I know. I'm also not going to miss the 6:45 a.m. wake-up call, which was the roller door opening to get out of there. I don't know why he wouldn't CRC it. He just wanted to torment me. But in all seriousness, I will be sharing with you just now quickly the different side to Rocky, and that's the side that he had with his grandkids. There are 6 of them: Maya, Sophia, Noah, Max, Eli, and Harper. And over time, they all formed a special relationship with Rocky. They quickly learned to engage with Rocky. He needed to speak his language. And his language was sport, history, or wildlife. Ooh, okay. Christmas, Easter, birthdays, all the same for the kids. They'd all sit around and Rocky would give them life advice. He'd give them, things that you need to know to be successful in this world. Things like Michael Phelps won 23 Olympic gold medals. Kids needed to know that. Or that Flojo still holds the record for the fastest 100-meter time for the female at the 1988 Seoul Olympics. Important fact. Wildlife. Why all cats need to be exterminated. to ensure the survival of the pied stilt bird along the Tarahiru River. Let's just say he wasn't impressed when the kids got their own kittens and they'd come up the bank with a mouthful of tui feathers. Didn't like it. And another important fact, and the actual real reason why he wasn't a fan of the All Blacks, why 28 African countries walked out of the 1976 Montreal Olympics. That's the real reason. But we won't go there because that's a bit of a dark time. Of course, there's also rules, which I learnt the hard way. Glenn Sutton, remember that night watching that rugby? There's certain things you don't mention around Rocky, particularly with sports. Certain names, you don't mention McCaw, Carter, that's blasphemy. You mention names like Gregan, Campese, Eels, they're Saints Gospel. You're right with those. He was incredible. He was incredibly proud of his grandkids, as everyone knows. He spoke about them out in public quite a bit. All the grandkids are confident swimmers, and that gave Rocky real peace of mind, knowing that they were well equipped in the water, a little bit safer. But he'd always reminded them that there's no such thing as a safe beach. Of all the grandkids, I think Rocky. Oh, sorry. When he and Jude were in Auckland, they'd take Max and Sophia to the Glennis pools for swimming. Closer to home, he'd encourage Maya, Noah, Eli with their technique, often mimicking the perfect, I can't do it, entry, catch, pull, recovery, and kick. They'll have a coach. Of all the grandkids, I think Rocky saw himself most in Eli Bob. Ooh. That's my opinion. He liked... he'd watch him from the kitchen window. Eli would be endlessly shooting hoops, putting in the hours or kicking the ball in the backyard. And in recent times, I'd take Rocky down to watch Bob play rugby. And he'd always praise him for the small stuff, like backing his teammates up or taking down the big boys. I reckon he saw his younger self out there when Eli was playing. He also shared a special bond with Noah. Noah's the go-to tech guy, as you can see, sorting out the iPad, fixing the Sky remote, tackling all those internet issues. But it went deeper than that. Noah always been the quiet soul, and over the last 10 years or so, he quietly stepped up, showing real empathy and support for his grandmother through those tough times. When Rocky found out Noah was going to uni, he was so moved he cried. And finally, the girls. Well, as we know, if you were a girl, you were in with Rocky. If he wasn't telling them how precious and lovely they were, he was recruiting. Oh, thank you. And where are you from? Do you swim? Do your children swim? They should. Have you heard of Midway Surf Club? That's pretty much how it went. Rocky was overjoyed with the arrival of Harper, who turns 2 in May. And when it came to Maya and Sophia, one graduating and the other finishing her degree, he'd get teary just talking about how proud he was of both of them. As Trish said, Rocky believed strongly in the value of education. He was a well-read man who enjoyed being informed, asking questions, and passing that mindset on. He encouraged all the grandkids to keep learning, whether in the classroom, through books, or by staying curious about the world. I think that will be Rocky's lasting impact on the kids. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. It's so awesome to hear that stuff. And yeah, as has been said, thank you to you guys. Do such an amazing job with Jude and over the last few years. So it's your support is amazing for that. There's a whole lot of stories to tell, and probably more than what we've talked about up here today. And there's plenty of time this afternoon to have a beer and have something to eat and chat. I've got one little story that I like, and it sort of portrays how passionate he was about Midway. It's a little bit sort of not such a good story for Rock, but one of those times that Bob was, but it does portray how much he loved his club. It's to do with one of the stories. I think Bob might have been paddling that day. Rocky was paddling into the harbour, and he won't mind me telling you this. And when it comes up northwest in town, the nor'wester gets really strong and it blows against Butler's Wall down there, and it can create a bit of havoc. It bounces off Butler's Wall and then comes out, and Rocky paddled in to the harbour one day, got up the harbour, right up the harbour, and on his way back out, the nor'wester got up and got really strong. It gets really, really bumpy up there, chop about that high. And Rock was sort of towards the end of his paddling career and slowing down a little bit, and he got stuck on Butler's Wall. And the lifeguards from here said, and paid guards are on. There's Midway paid guards on and paid guards down at Waikanai as well. And so a decision was made to say, hey, look, well, Waikanai's right there. You guys go get the IRB and rescue this bloke that's sort of stuck on Butler's Wall. Rocky was happy to wait another sort of 15, 20 minutes for there to be an IRB come from Midway to make its way down to get Rocky off Butler's Wall. There was no way he was getting taken off Butler's Wall with a ski by an IRB that came from Waikanai. So there's a couple of stories like that I'm sure we'll have a laugh about and talk about Rock over the afternoon. Look, in closing, Jude would like to thank everyone for attending today, especially those who has travelled from afar. I see Coppo and Nikki there from the other side of the country, people from Dunedin, Tom Dyer's here, and many others. She'd like to thank you guys for travelling from afar, those tuning in through the live stream who can't be here today. And Jude would like to pay special mention to the staff at Te Wiremu House for their compassionate care of Rocky over the last 7 months. Dr. Bound Stoltenberg, who was Rocky's GP and was heavily involved in Rocky's health over the years, and the Midway Surf Club committee and members for the amazing support over the last week in putting today together. Well, Rock, you've paddled your last race, and it's time to wash your ski off. Rest up now. Your memory will live on forever through the impact you made to the people around you. Thanks, Rock. Sorry, one more thing. Nearly finished. The surf club, the guys at the surf club through Jack Gibbon actually thankfully have, so you can all, we'll encourage everyone to stay. Plenty of beers in the fridge, some wines and plenty of food to come. Please stay and share a story about Rock. There is going to be a guard of honour that the surf club are going to do down the front of the surf club here on the sand. They're going to be standing down there with their paddles held to the air, looking out to sea. Just as a guard of honour and a way to pay tribute to a great man. Feel free, anyone who would like to be involved in that, to walk downstairs, grab a paddle out of the gear shed. Rocky would love you to do that and stand on the beach. And if not, have something to eat, have something to drink, and watch that, and then stay for some stories about Rock. Thanks, guys.